You're 19 years old, broke, and standing outside a pawn shop with bars on the windows, wondering if this is rock bottom or just the beginning. You've got $43 in your bank account. Your car is one bad noise away from dying on the highway. And the only job that called you back this week was this place, Diamond and Gold Pawn, on the corner of a street you usually avoid. Here's what nobody tells you about pawn shops. They're not just where desperate people sell their stuff. They're one of the most brutal, most educational crash courses in real-world finance you will ever get. You're about to learn how to read people, read value, read risk, and if you play it right, you're about to learn how money actually moves in this country. By the end of this video, you will have climbed from a $12 an hour counter clerk to a regional buyer controlling 7 figures in inventory across a dozen stores. But it starts here, right now, with you walking through that door, not knowing a diamond from a piece of glass. Let's go to work. Rank 1, Counter Clerk. Your manager tosses you a red polo and says, "Put this over your shirt. You start now." No training video, no handbook, just a register, a stack of pawn tickets, and a line of customers already forming. Your job title is Counter Clerk, and your job is simple on paper. Greet customers, log items, process transactions. In reality, you are about to become a therapist, a negotiator, and a human lie detector for $12.50 an hour. The first week breaks you a little. A man comes in trying to pawn a gold chain that turns your fingers green in 10 seconds. A woman cries at the counter because she has to pawn her wedding ring to make rent. A teenager tries to sell you a PlayStation that was reported stolen 2 days ago, and you almost don't catch it. This is the lesson nobody puts in the finance textbook. Money is emotional. Every item that crosses this counter represents somebody's bad month, bad luck, or bad decision. You start to realize the pawn shop isn't selling merchandise. It's selling short-term liquidity to people the banks won't touch. You also learn the first real rule of the business, whispered to you by a senior employee named Marcus. Never fall in love with the merchandise, and never fall for the sob story. Both will cost you money. By month 2, you've stopped flinching at a good story. You've learned to check hallmarks on jewelry, spot a fake Rolex by the secondhand tick, and calculate interest on a 30-day loan in your head. Your manager notices. You're fast, you're sharp, and you haven't shorted the till once. One Friday afternoon, he pulls you aside. "You ever think about learning appraisals?" he asks. "Real money's not at the counter. It's in knowing what things are actually worth. You've been eating gas station sandwiches for lunch for 2 months straight. You say yes before he finishes the sentence." Rank 2, Appraiser. Appraiser. The title sounds fancy. The reality is you spend the next 6 months learning to smell fake gold, hear a cracked guitar body from across the room, and tell a real diamond from a moissanite under a jeweler's loupe. Your pay jumps to $17 an hour. But more importantly, you start seeing the real economics of the business for the first time. Every item that comes across your bench has 3 numbers attached to it: what the customer thinks it's worth, what it's actually worth, and what the shop can sell it for. Your entire job is living in the gap between those 3 numbers. You learn the acid test for gold carat purity. You learn that a vintage Rolex is fake 9 times out of 10, but the 10th time it's worth more than your car. You learn that power tools and guitars move fast, that gaming consoles are a race against depreciation, and that gold, actual gold, is the one asset in this store that never really loses value. It just gets remelted, reweighed, resold. This is where the finance lesson really sharpens. Liquidity has a price, and that price is set by risk. The shop lends 40 to 60 cents on the dollar of an item's resale value, not because it's greedy, because it has to cover the risk that the customer never comes back, the item doesn't sell, or the market shifts. You start to understand collateral lending the way a bank does, except this bank is you, standing at a bench with a loop in your eye. You make your first big mistake in month 4. A guy brings in a solid gold bracelet. It passes the acid test. You approve a $600 loan on it. 3 weeks later, the shop's refiner rejects it. It's gold-plated tungsten, engineered specifically to fool acid tests. You just cost the store $600. Your manager doesn't fire you. He sits you down and says, "Good. Now you'll never make that mistake again." The appraisers who never lose money are the ones who never appraised anything hard. That mistake teaches you more than the first 6 months combined. By the end of the year, you're the fastest, most accurate appraiser in the store. And one afternoon, the district manager visits and watches you work for 20 minutes without saying a word. Before he leaves, he tells your manager, "Get him into loans." He's wasting his eye on merchandise when he could be reading people. Rank 3, Loan Officer. Loan Officer, your desk finally has a nameplate. Your pay jumps to $22 an hour plus a small commission on loan volume. And for the first time, you're not just pricing objects, you're pricing people. Every loan you write is a bet. Will this customer come back in 30 days and pay the interest to reclaim their item? Or will they let it default and the item becomes store inventory? You start tracking your own redemption rate obsessively. The percentage of loans that get paid back versus forfeited. Because that number determines whether you're actually good at this job or just lucky. You learn the real math of the pawn industry, and it will change how you think about money forever. The interest rate on a pawn loan can look enormous annualized, sometimes 200%, 300% a year. But the actual dollar risk is tiny because loans are small, short, and fully collateralized. It's not predatory the way people assume. It's one of the only lending products in America where the lender takes on almost zero credit risk because if you don't pay, you don't lose your credit score. You just lose the item, and the shop already priced that in. You also learn who actually uses pawn loans, and it humbles you. It's not just addicts and criminals like the stereotype. It's a single mom bridging 2 weeks until payday. It's a small contractor pawning tools mid-month to buy materials for a job that pays out in 3 weeks. It's your old neighbor pawning his late father's watch, promising you he'll be back for it. And 3 months later, he is, cash in hand, practically in tears. That moment sticks with you. You start treating every loan differently after that. You still protect the shop's money, that's the job. But you start explaining terms clearly, warning people about interest before they sign, sometimes talking someone down from pawning something they'll regret losing. Word starts to spread in the neighborhood. Ask for Eddie. He'll actually be straight with you. Your redemption rate climbs to the highest in the store. Regulars specifically wait in line for your desk. 6 months in, the owner, not just the manager, the actual store owner, walks in for a rare in-person visit and asks to speak with you directly. Rank 4, Assistant Manager. Assistant Manager, $58,000 a year salary now, plus a cut of store profit. You've got keys to the safe, a badge that says Manager on Duty, and a responsibility that keeps you up some nights. This store's numbers are now partly your numbers. This is where the job stops being about individual transactions and starts being about systems. You're not appraising one watch anymore. You're managing the flow of hundreds of items a week. Inventory turnover, shelf space, staffing schedules, loss prevention, shrinkage reports. You learn that a pawn shop's real profit doesn't come from the loans at all. It comes from the merchandise sales on defaulted items, where margins can be 100%, 200%, sometimes more. You start running the numbers like a small business owner because functionally, you now are one. You track which categories move fastest. Power tools and phones turn in days. Jewelry can sit for months, and you push your team to price accordingly. You cut a slow-moving guitar's price twice before it finally sells, and it teaches you a lesson you'll use for the rest of your life. Inventory that isn't moving isn't an asset, it's a cost. Every day an item sits on a shelf, it's tying up cash that could be working somewhere else. You also inherit the hard parts of management. You have to fire an employee for skimming cash off small transactions. You have to deal with an attempted robbery one night, a man with a knife demanding the jewelry case, and you keep your voice level and hand over the case instead of the safe, because the store's insurance covers merchandise, but nothing covers you. Your hands shake for an hour after. Nobody prepares you for that part of retail finance, the fact that the store's biggest asset is sometimes just staying calm. But the store's numbers are undeniable. Under your run, monthly profit is up 22% year over year. Loss and shrinkage are down. Customer complaints are basically gone. One evening, the owner, a tired man in his 60s named Harold, who's run this shop for 30 years, sits you down after closing with 2 coffees and says the sentence that changes your life. I'm retiring in 8 months. I want to sell you this store. Rank 5, store owner. You don't have the cash to buy the store outright. Nobody your age does. So you learn the last, biggest financial lesson of your journey. Seller financing. Harold agrees to sell you the business for $340,000, with you putting $40,000 down, nearly everything you've saved across 5 years, and paying the rest off monthly over 8 years, directly to him at a fixed interest rate, no bank required. It is the most terrifying signature of your life. You are now personally responsible for payroll, rent, inventory financing, insurance, and a loan that eats a huge chunk of your monthly income. For the first 6 months, you barely pay yourself anything. You are the owner, the appraiser, the loan officer, and the guy who mops the floor at closing, all at once. But you finally have full control, and you use everything you learned at every rank below you. You modernize the store, online listings for higher value items, a better security system, a cleaner sales floor. You train your staff the way you wished you'd been trained on day one. You keep the redemption-friendly culture that made you popular as a loan officer, because you know now that a customer who trusts you comes back for life and tells 5 friends. Year 2 as owner, the store posts its best profit in over a decade. Year 3, you pay off a chunk of the note early. Somewhere in there, you stop being scared every time rent is due, and you start actually building wealth instead of just surviving month to month, the entire reason you walked in that door 6 years ago. Then one afternoon, a woman in a sharp business suit walks in, not to pawn anything, but to talk to you. She's a regional buyer for a chain of 12 pawn shops across 3 states, and she's retiring in a year. She's watched your store's numbers online for 2 years. She has one question. How would you like to stop running 1 store and start running 12? Rank 6, regional buyer. Regional buyer. You sell your first store to a trusted former employee, someone you trained yourself, using the exact same seller financing deal Harold once gave you, because you know now that passing the ladder down is how this industry actually works. Your new job is bigger than any single counter, bench, or desk ever was. You now oversee purchasing and pricing strategy across 12 stores, managing millions of dollars in inventory flow every year. You negotiate bulk deals with refiners for gold. You set loan-to-value policy across an entire region based on real default data instead of gut feeling. You train regional managers using the same principles Marcus taught you at the counter on day 1. Never fall in love with the merchandise. Never fall for the story. Protect the capital, but treat the customer like a human being. You fly between store locations now, wearing a suit that costs more than your first month's rent used to. But you still remember, every single time you walk into one of your stores to stop at the counter first, not the office, the counter. Because that's where the real business happens, where a nervous 19-year-old in a red polo shirt is standing behind the register, learning that money is emotional, that value has layers, and that if you pay attention, a pawn shop can teach you more about real finance than 4 years of business school ever could.